Hello and welcome to After Class. I'm so excited for today's episode because we're diving into a topic that every adult ballet dancer can relate to: how to be a great student. And I'm thrilled to be having this conversation with someone I deeply admire, Julie from Broche Ballet. For those of you who might not know, Julie is the founder of Broche Ballet, an incredible adult ballet platform that offers live Zoom classes 6 days a week, plus an on-demand library with over 8,000 videos. You'll find everything from bar, center, and point classes to deep dives into pirouettes, port de bras, and so much more. I'm especially excited to learn from Julie on this topic because not only is she an expert in teaching adults, but she's also a dedicated lifelong learner, constantly continuing her own training as a student. In this episode, we talk about practical ways to get the most out of group class, how to use private lessons effectively, and tips for reviewing video footage so you can truly maximize your learning. Julie has such a thoughtful and inspiring perspective on being a student, and I can't wait for you to hear what she has to share. Let's get into it.
Julie, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have you on.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for this chat. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am particularly excited to talk with you about this subject because you have the experience of being someone who teaches many students per week and have been doing that for years. But also I know that you continue to be a student yourself and you're a lifelong learner of ballet. And so I think you are going to have so much to contribute to this topic. So I was thinking we could kind of break up the episode into like before class, during class, after class, and what are the things that we could do in those time frames that will really help us be the best student we can be. So starting with before class, what are some of the best practices that you personally use as a student to set yourself up for a good class?
Especially if I have the same, I like to work with the same teacher over a long period of time. And I think many of our dancers listening probably do too. You have your teacher, you have your community that you go to. I try to remember at least one thing from the last week that I did or that someone told me or a combination that we did. I try to just remember one thing, a mistake that I made, something I wanted to do better. I try to recall at least one thing. And if I'm in person, I try to remember somebody's name. So someone who I saw there, what they were wearing last week, try to remember something about a person who was in the class so that I have an ability to connect with somebody there. I find that easily helpful. But really the biggest things to set myself up for a class is just kind of things of one thing. Man, last time I kept falling backwards in my pirouette. That's enough. That's enough to remember. And then I go into the class with that sort of idea.
Yeah, I like that one of your goals going in is not just for your own personal practice as a dancer, but even just connecting with other people in class. And I think that's like a really special thing when we can make the classroom feel like a safe space and a place where people feel welcome. And I know you do that as a teacher too, which is, I always love that about you. Like every time someone enters the Zoom, you make a point to acknowledge people. Is that something that's just like innate to you? Or was that something that there was like intention behind really wanting to make people feel seen as they come in the class?
Well, I started ballet in a lot of adult open classes myself. And in New York City, I did a lot of my early training, and so many classes, you just feel like an anonymous person, nobody, and the teacher doesn't know your name. And, I get it. It's the environment that you're in. But even just knowing one person going into it makes me feel so much more comfortable as a learner. Then you get very anxious and overwhelmed in a ballet class, especially because you care so much. But if I know there's that one person I can look at in class and smile at them when it's not going well for me, I know that I can feel a lot more comfortable in the class. So that's one big thing, was just how I always felt taking class myself, and I wanted to make sure my students didn't feel like that. The second thing is that I teach adults, and they probably, if they came in late, they probably are having a rough day or they have a lot going on. I know sometimes people get annoyed when someone comes in late, and sometimes it can be oh, I really hope you're warmed up enough to hop in right now. And you can kind of hope that they're doing the best thing for their body. But the people who came in late are the people who are maybe extra frazzled that day. They got stuck in traffic. Their kid threw up on the floor right before they came. Left dog feet on the carpet right before they came. Whatever, they're bossed out at them. Whatever just happened before that, they still made it. I do try to make a point to acknowledge the people who are coming in late just because, who did it? Good luck. You got here, right? The last thing that really solidified this for me was I started jiu-jitsu a couple of years ago and did that for 2 years. And in jiu-jitsu, it's a very interesting thing where every person who walks in has to shake everybody else's hand in the class. And so every time you walk in, you don't necessarily say hi to everybody, but you have to touch every person who you see there. And that environment can be so intimidating. Their goal is to rip your arm off, right? It's kind of an intimidating environment, but just the act of going to shake everybody's hand beforehand makes you feel so much more welcome in the room. And so I wish ballet would be that. I don't think that's happening in overall ballet culture anytime soon, but just that everybody is aware of everybody else's presence and is not tunnel vision to themselves, I think was very, very important. So I think all of those things led me to make sure that every person feels like I saw them there and that they've been publicly acknowledged that they exist in that room and that they matter in that space.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful practice within jujitsu, what you just described. So now moving into the time during class that we're physically present in the room, what are some of the habits that you see in students who you feel like are just really getting a lot out of class from week to week? Because you work with so many students in a variety of life situations, but I'm curious if there's things that you notice consistently.
I think the biggest one is that they try things between combinations. So while the teacher is explaining to another person about a correction, that you're also noodling on it on your own body, and you see like, would that work for me too? Like, what would happen if I also did that? Or if you finish a combination and the teacher's explaining to someone or teaching the next combination or something, kind of thinking about what just happened. If the teacher just gave you a correction like elbow up, then after class or after that combo, like trying that same exact thing, just not like looking for attention or anything, just like trying it in your body and being like, did that help? Like, what was that about? Right. Because then the teacher can also see how that landed in your body. Whereas if you don't give it a try, they can't see how it landed in your body. While it might sound simple, like the biggest thing is like continuing to participate when it gets difficult. The biggest, kind of opposite that I'll see is people who get stuck is that when center gets crazy or anything happens, people will just stop. They'll put their arms down and they'll just stop trying and they just stop engaging in the class. But the thing is, if you're with a teacher who cares about you, which I hope you are, I hope wherever you are, you're with a teacher who cares about you in your class, the teacher is learning from you. The teacher is learning from what you can't do about what they need to do better as a teacher and what they need to explain differently and what they need to break down. If you're in an environment where the teacher wants you to improve, they look at your mistakes and they say, oh, interesting. Maybe they don't have words for you that day because sometimes you see a new mistake and you're like not sure how to fix it. But if they really care, they need to see your mistakes in order to know how to help you. And so when you just stop participating in the class or you don't try the things that they ask you to do, they have no clue. They have no feedback on if what they're saying is actually working or not. And the only way that we as teachers can be effective is if we know if it's working. Like, I mean, how can you know if you say step to an ether? I mean, I can talk to an empty video screen, but I will never get to be a better teacher if I don't see people mess up what I told them and think, oh, interesting. That's not actually what I wanted you to do. Okay.
Yeah, that is so fascinating and like such a light bulb for me as a student here, because I think sometimes as adults, like we have this feeling of not wanting to offend by doing it wrong. There's this like, oh, if I do it wrong and I make it look really bad, that's going to be embarrassing, for one, but also like, is it going to offend? Like, is my suck going to offend the teacher in some way, And so I think it's so interesting to hear from the teaching perspective of like, no, we actually need to see what the struggle looks like for you in a sense to be able to then tailor our response and our corrections. Because if I can't see where, the hang up is, how can I help? So I think that's like such a helpful way to frame things. I'm sure like for everyone who's listening, who's a student, is probably thinking like, oh, wow, that is actually very freeing as a student to be like, oh, you need to see it even if it's terrible.
Yeah. I can't, it's like, also, first of all, if some teacher does get offended by your suck, that's not the right teacher for you. Like, it is a thing. I've had teachers offended by my suck for sure. I think if you've been around the Valley world long enough, you've probably experienced that and it's terrible and it feels awful, but like, it's not you, it's that particular teacher, right? It's like you're not a good fit for each other. And find another teacher or find another way to work with them. So anyways, if that does happen to you, it's not you, it's the environment. It's like if you imagine like a doctor who was going to give you a medication and couldn't check your blood to see if it worked. What a terrible idea. What if you had a chiropractor who was just like pushing on your spine and couldn't feel if it worked? What a terrible idea. You would not want these people helping you medically. Like, they can't help you if they can't see what the issue is. Like, they really can't help. And so this free, you can, I totally get it. I've been there as a student. You're just like messing everything up and you don't know which way is left and you don't know which way is right. And you're just like, I can't right now. Like, this is awful. And you're like red and you're you cry in the car afterwards. It's like too much, right? You're just over threshold in every way. But like those moments, whenever you're able to, like whatever you can do, try. The teacher will give up on you if you give up on yourself. Like they can't help you if you've given up. They really can't. And generally speaking, the teacher wants to help you. Like how bad it feels as a teacher after class when you watch people give up during class and you weren't able to help them because they stopped engaging with you. Like that's a terrible feeling as a teacher when the student stops engaging with you. You just know you've totally failed them in that moment and not been able to work with them through that. A good teacher wants to engage with you and wants to see what the issue is and wants to help you with it. And the other students want to cheer you on. Like it's in an environment that's actually meant for learning. Like they want to help you and they need to know where you need help.
Yeah, and I think the other point you made too is also really great of being willing to put the correction in your body as it's being given to someone else and kind of playing with it.
And, if you're a person who likes getting corrections, the easiest way to get more corrections is by trying to apply other people's corrections first. Like if you just go up to your teacher and say, give me more corrections, it's unlikely you're going to get more corrections because the teacher doesn't know you. There's not a trust there yet that you will appreciate the corrections, that you'll want to apply them, that they won't cause you to melt down. Like as teachers, we build that trust with our students that we can give corrections and not derail a person's whole experience. We build that trust up day by day. And when we see you playing with other people's corrections, that is a very safe place for us as teachers to be like, oh, this person is open to doing things differently. This person wants to do things differently. And so as much as you can, like play with other people's tips because it just gives the teacher the ability to see your learning style and see how you approach all of it. Because as teachers, like we're looking at a group of people, we have no idea, is this person sensitive? Do they love critiques? Are they having a rep day? Like how much can I push them? If I tell them to turn out, will it hurt their hips? Like, I mean, we don't know looking at you how to correct you. But if you start playing, we see that you're open to playing and to working and to manipulating things. So break out of that need to stand still and start noodling. I call it noodling. My students send me noodle emojis all the time. They're like noodling on something after class. Noodle around. Like it might feel like you're interrupting, but like the teacher will probably turn to look at you and be like, "Oh, that works for you too." And then there you go. Now you've built that relationship a little bit, and other people in the class will start doing it, and it'll kind of snowball.
Yeah, and I love the term noodling because I think it even has like a playfulness to it that I think is actually like very, very important to the learning process, but that ballet doesn't often cultivate a feeling that you
Yep.
can. But I think like it's so valuable and I tend to learn so much more from teachers like you where there is that feeling that you can noodle and you can play a little bit
Yeah.
because I think when you feel like it's so serious that you can't approach things with like a curiosity and a playfulness, it actually really stunts your growth over time. So like we
Yep.
need that to just be able to like see how things feel in our body without it being a fail or succeed benchmark always. I think we tend to look at things, especially in ballet, as very black and white, like either you did it right or you did it wrong. And it's like, no, there's all this area in between where we need to just like play.
Yeah, there's a lot of searching going on. There's a lot more playing than I think people realize because it's a very common thing that people will say. You'll give them a correction about whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I've been doing it wrong this whole time." That's often a very upsetting feeling for people that they've been quote unquote doing it wrong this whole time. But so much of ballet is layering and more layers and more layers and noodling and figuring out like, oh, okay, well, that's not really working for you now that you're at this level, or you've gotten stronger and now you can do it this way, or you've learned this new thing and now you can add that in. And there's so much more play in the learning process than I think people realize.
Yeah, and I think even like the willingness to be able to push to extremes or what maybe feels like an extreme for you. And I think extremes can be kind of scary for us because all of our lives like we're trying to bring them into this lane of safety and security. But I think what I've realized for me, like so much of ballet has been being willing to like if something's not working in a turn and I feel like I'm falling one way, okay, trying it again and feel like I'm really extremely going the other way and seeing how that feels. Because sometimes if you're not willing to make that extreme adjustment, you'll kind of just live in this place of like getting frustrated because you're not correcting enough. So I think like also being willing to in that playfulness play with extremes of just like making a really big adjustment and seeing how that feels.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being able, what's so weird about the extremes is that they all feel so wrong. And we have like as adults, we have a very strong sense of like what feels right in our body and what feels wrong in our body. But most of ballet feels wrong in our body, especially posture and turns and where to stand on point. Like a lot of this stuff can feel wrong at first because it's so different from what we're used to. And so, especially with posture, I'll see And as a student too, like I went through one where I was trying to change part of my posture with my teacher. Changing posture is one of the hardest things to do. I know it seems easy, but changing posture is one of the hardest things to do. It will derail everything you're doing until you solidify that posture and everything. It'll feel like 5 steps backwards. So changing posture is something that students are usually very unwilling to do because it requires you feeling wrong for so long. So for a while, I was working on something with my upper back with my teacher. And I feel like every week she was saying the same exact thing over and over to me again. And so usually with teachers, and I do this too, you'll keep giving them the same correction until they fix it. You'll not give them a new correction until they fix that one. Because as a teacher, you think that's the most important thing for them to fix next. And so you're like, I'm not looking at anything else until you fix this. And so she wasn't changing her corrections. And I'm like, okay, so clearly this is important to her. Clearly she feels this is important for my development. And clearly I'm not getting it, right? And the questions I'm asking aren't allowing me to get it. So I just decided to do it what I felt was completely wrong. I was like, okay, so she wanted me to do something with my upper back. Let me just see if I can look like a hunchback here. Let me see if I can just like do it completely wrong and forward. And that day, then I actually got the information that I needed to fix it because she was like, no, now you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, great, perfect. Tell me. And so then we could take it halfway back. But it wasn't until I went to an extreme that she even could notice that I was trying to make a change. Before, she just thought I wasn't trying to make a change, or it wasn't big enough for her to even notice or register that I was working on it. She just kept thinking maybe that I was forgetting or didn't think about it, but I was trying. It just wasn't obvious or clear that I would made any change at all. It was only took making something super extreme change where she was then able to see like, okay. And then we were able to have an actual conversation about what the problem was and how to fix it. And then that was pretty much it. It took maybe 1 or 2 more weeks after that to fix the whole problem. That was like 6 months of trying. So it's like, if I had tried that sooner, it would have been like way quicker.
I know, it's so funny. I'm sure I still do it sometimes, but one of like my big things is I used to put my neck forward, like my chin and my neck forward. And it's so funny because talking about extremes, like I have realized that if I feel like my head is really tipped back, I'm in the right position.
Yeah.
But to me, it feels like I am leaning back to be correct. And I'm like, if I feel like I'm tipped back, I know I'm good. So it's funny. It's the goal is it feeling wrong.
Yeah.
Just to know that it looks right.
With actual true postural structural changes, it has to feel wrong to you
Yeah.
for a very long time before it can start to feel right.
Today's episode is sponsored by Line Fitness by Allie. As dancers, we all want to feel capable in our bodies, to jump with power, turn with ease, and move through class with stability and grace. Dancer Strong was created to help you get there. It's a comprehensive online platform with on-demand strength, stretch, and mobility classes, plus live Zoom sessions each week. Each workout is designed specifically for adult dancers, so the progress you make shows up where it matters the most, in the studio. I've personally been using Dancer Strong for the past year, and the results have been amazing. My stamina has improved, my back pain has disappeared, and I've been able to increase my point training while remaining injury-free through summer intensives and workshops. If your goals for the new year include stronger jumps, higher extensions, or cleaner pirouettes, Dancer Strong is the tool you've been looking for. You can visit dancerstrongprograms.com and use the code AFTERCLASS for $5 off your purchase of a course or membership. That's dancerstrongprograms.com, code AFTERCLASS. Head into the new year ready to achieve your best dancing yet.
I'm curious because the bulk of your teaching is on Zoom. Are there things kind of on this overarching topic of being a good student or being the best student you can be? Like, are there things that are particular to Zoom? And even if it's like just super practical of like where you set your camera, are there things that are helpful for you as a teacher? Because I know so many people now are either only on Zoom or they're using it supplementally. So yeah, I just think like the Zoom component has become such an important piece of the pie for ballet training.
Yeah, it's so interesting how it's changed. And now it's interesting. I was reflecting the other day, I've now taught longer on Zoom than I taught in the studio, because the studios that I owned for 4 years and now I've taught on Zoom for 5 years. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. It's surpassed it. But a couple of things. How you set your camera up, I would say depends on what corrections you want. If you are looking for corrections on your alignment, on your posture, the teacher cannot see this from the front. You need a side view camera. So use 2 cameras, put a laptop in front of you that you can carry back and forth, and use a camera for the side view. If you can't, if you don't want to look over your shoulder. But if you want corrections on your posture and your alignment, like the head back thing you were talking about, the teacher can't correct you on that from the front. They can't even see it at all. So if if you're getting from your in-person teacher, like your lower back is curved or whatever, then and you go to a Zoom class hoping to fix it, but you give them a front view, it's not going to help in the slightest. They're not going to be able to help you with that. They can't see it from the front view. Things that you can do a lot better from the front view than the side view are things like arms and where your head is looking. So the head movements and the arms are much easier from the front view. Also, in many ways, the pointing of the feet is easier from the front view. You can see the line in all seconde a little bit easier from the front view. You can see the line in the devant a little easier from the front view. You can see some of the extremities a little bit better from the front view. But that core trunk, if you're looking for help with anything regarding your spine, then that side view is going to be better. When it comes to center, straight on your room is much better. If you're on a diagonal, if your camera's on a diagonal, then it's very disorienting. I'm not sure if you're facing this corner or that corner and, whatever's going on there. So from the center, a straight front view is really, really nice. Then one more, if you're looking for anything about your turnout, then turnout is also really great from the side view. You can see like where the ala seconde is placed. You can see where the passe is placed. You can see kind of how the foot sickle is going, how the lower leg turnout is going. You can see all of that stuff. So yeah, point is helpful to give your teacher sometimes a view of only your feet and sometimes a view of your body because the teacher can't see the feet close up from far away. So if you put the camera from your, feet to your thighs every couple of weeks, the teacher can check in with your feet and see if you're on your box and see how you're articulating and see how your feet are moving and the shape there. So really, an easy way to set this up is to I know it's painful to watch yourself on video, guys. I know it's terrible. Ugh. But put a video camera in the front of your room and just stand at different angles and see what kinds of things you can actually see yourself.
Yeah, it's wild. I'm sure I would be curious to hear. I'm sure it's happened before where you've had someone who's been using one angle for a year or 6 months and all of a sudden they move or they change their room and you see them from a different angle and you're like, whoa, totally different.
Right. You'll hear me ask, I'm like, is this a new room or a new angle? And they're like, new angle. I'm like, okay, orient me.
So switching gears from Zoom specifically, but I would love to hear your tips and just thoughts because I know that you are someone who gives private lessons and you also take private lessons. And I think sometimes for adults, they like the idea of taking a private, but from the student perspective, aren't sure if the nuances of how you conduct yourself in a private versus a group class are going to be different. And if you've never done it before and you're thinking oh man, I'm going to be the sole focus of attention and I want to do well. So what are the main differences you would say between being a, quote unquote good student in a group class setting versus a private lesson? And are there things that you suggest for that setting versus a group class?
Yeah, it's a great question. Private lessons are hugely beneficial for students. Personally, a lot of my training has come from private lessons in the sense that it's very difficult to get something very specific out of a group class.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something very, very specific, in my case was looking for some higher levels than what was offered in the group classes that were available to me by age group. And so you in many cases, you need to go to a private lesson to get some of these things. And so so much of my training, I think other than maybe 1 year of ballet, I've been taking weekly private lessons, if not twice or 3 times a week. And that's been 17 years. So this is not a plug for me personally as a private teacher. This is I literally have surely paid more in private lessons than I've ever gotten paid in private lessons. It's a very much something that I believe very, very much in is both private lessons and independent study. Basically, private lessons is independent study, but with supervision. But they're both really, really important if you want to make a lot of progress. A group class is super great. It gives you lots to work on, but that focus on what you specifically need, where your head needs to go, where your arms need to go, how your elbows work, what's going on with that right shoulder, why is that elbow not as lifted as your left, what's happening with that right hip, what's happening with that left foot, these type of things. You really need to take it down to the individual level and think about what you need. So for private lessons, first of all, if you've never done them before, there's 2 main approaches. Number 1 is if you have something specific you want to work on. And number 2 is you want to be better, but you're not really sure what better means. Because you can't always know as a student. You're I know I'm not, I see the pros and my waltz doesn't look like theirs, but I don't know why. That's the job of the teacher, right?
Yeah.
So if you're asking for something specific, you can usually get away with a shorter private lesson. So maybe 45 minutes or 30 minutes or something. Let's say as an example, to just test the waters and see if you like private lessons. your teacher gives a combination that was really hard or a correction that you didn't quite understand. You walk up after class and you say, hey, that correction you gave me was really helpful. Do you offer private lessons? I'd love to book half an hour with you to dive deeper into that correction. So then you have like a springboard topic for it. You have a short commitment where you're not just like going into something totally unknown. That can be like a really easy entry point into trying your first private lesson without having to like work up the courage to walk up to your teacher and be like, I want to be better. Please help. Which can be a little bit scary, but a teacher will usually be very receptive to that ask that I just said, where you gave them a correction. They already know that they want that from you. They don't have to come up with anything. It's already a shared thing you have. But if you're looking for like a deeper private lesson relationship, what you might say is like, I love your group class. It's so fun and engaging. I'd love to be able to go deeper with you. I'd love to be able to take things to the next level and be able to really study with you privately. Do you offer regular private lessons, and kind of say that you're looking for a relationship that you're going to build together. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's bi-weekly, whatever it is. These, you might want a bit longer of a private lesson. The teacher might give you the format of like a regular class, but with lots of corrections. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but that can be a format that really helps you get better, where they'll give you a plie, a tendu, a rond de jambe, and maybe a center combination in an hour, and they'll dig 25 minutes into each of those combinations to work on your technique. That can be a really nice way to improve your relationship, deepen your relationship with your teacher, and also get lots and lots of tips. It can be helpful to do private lessons with your main group class teacher too, because then when they see you in class, they know more about you and your body, and they can kind of work with you a little bit. It'll make your group classes more worthwhile, let's say, because you know the teacher and they know you and you've worked together in that way. They just know more about what you're working on. But the longer private lessons will let you get into more number of things. Like in a private setting, a topic that might take you 5 minutes to cover in group class might take you 25 to 30 minutes to cover in a private setting, especially if you're looking to get into details. So a plie combination, like with my teacher, it'll be usually like a 2 or 3 hour private lesson every week. And it would be just bar and center. And that's all, maybe there's even time for point, but often not, because we take an hour and a half to do bar and we take an hour to do center. And so taking an hour and a half to do bar means not more combinations. It just means more fixing, more noodling. So in a fondue combination, we might spend 15 minutes correcting all the mistakes and then trying it again. Like, okay, the head goes here, the fingers go here, the shoulder goes here, the foot wasn't pointed there, the turnout here. Like you can get really into depth. If that sounds overwhelming, don't start there. That's the level of detail you can get into with a private lesson that you can't get into with a group class. I would say that's the types of private lessons. And then how to be a good student in a private lesson versus a group class. Really, if you want to engage in a long-term private relationship, remembering what they say from week to week is so helpful. Coming with questions like this. Last week you told me at the end, something about my foot, and I've been playing it with it this week. And I noticed in this other circumstance I have the same problem. Can I show you that? And like showing that outside of class, you're trying to make these connections between what they're saying and that you're trying to assimilate everything. Like they don't expect you to learn it overnight, but they do want you, if you're looking for a really deep private teaching relationship, they do want you to improve week over week. They're not generally in it to just give you a class for entertainment purposes. They generally want you to improve and to take their corrections seriously and to be able to move on to new corrections at a certain point, maybe some months or whatever it takes. So ask them like, oh, I was looking in the mirror the other day and I noticed that my elbow keeps dropping in this case. Can you take a look? Like, can you watch for it today? I'm really fascinated by that. Like coming in with your own observations can be incredibly helpful in a private setting that you wouldn't necessarily do in a group setting.
And I love what you said too at the beginning about like coming in with something specific to work on, even just as a way of narrowing focus. Because I think there's like two components with lessons for adults. One is time, and then the other can be money too, and like affordability. And so I think like one of the things that I've had people ask regarding privates is it even worth it to do a 30-minute private? And I'm like, yes. Like it is absolutely worth it to do a 30-minute private, because especially if you come with something like I've done this a few times with one of my teachers where there's something in class that keeps coming up, like a certain step where every time it gets thrown into the choreography, I'm like, oh God, like I don't really know how to do this. Like I just kind of like fumble through it, because I've never really like properly learned how to do it. So every time it comes up, it like causes me a little bit of stress. And so when those things come up, I'm like, okay, that's going to be the next private lesson I book for 30 minutes is I'm just going to like learn this step or maybe 2 steps. And it is so worth it, I think, to get a 30-minute private, and like you can get a lot of really, really valuable information in 30 minutes. So
Absolutely.
great.
Think about 30 minutes of your ballet class. Like if you're in a 90-minute ballet class, there's only 30 minutes is in there. And each one of those 30 minutes is incredibly valuable. And imagine if you did 30 minutes on only one topic. Like let's say you really hate frappes. What if you did 30 whole minutes of frappes with your teacher? You would be A, exhausted, but B, you would be so much more comfortable with your frappes. Just because you focused in on that one thing for so long. I think even half an hour is extremely valuable. But don't come in expecting a full class in half an hour. But if you come in with one specific thing you're looking for, half an hour is plenty of time.
Yeah, because I mean, that it is a lot of time, because I think relative to how long we spend in a group class.
Yeah.
I was talking about this some of the other day too. I think when you've been taking class for a while, it becomes so routine to you that you just kind of accept that things happen at the pace that they're happening. But then when you see someone brand new come in, especially to like an open class that's not really tailored to beginner dancers, you realize we move real quick.
So fast, like through so many unrelated topics. Like I know that they're related, and we know that they're related once we've been around for a while. But when you start, you're like, wait, did we just forget everything we just did and move on to a totally new topic? Like, what are we doing now? This is unrelated.
Yeah, and things with so much nuance in each
Yeah.
thing. Like you throw in, port de bras for any combination, and it's like, okay, well, you just essentially doubled my mental workload, but I still have to get it done in the like 60 seconds that the combo lasts. And so I think like sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit as students. The reason why we might be a little bit confused and unsure of certain steps or like need work on certain steps is because like we don't actually spend that much time on them in class. Like you beat yourself up thinking like, why am I not better at this? I take class all the time. But in class, you're really only spending a few minutes on any one step, and then you're moving on.
Yeah, that's why I say to people, if you have a specific goal in ballet, that one specific goal will not take you that long to achieve. All of ballet will take you a very long to achieve. But if you have a very, very specific goal, like some people will come in with a very specific goal of point shoes, I'm like, let's narrow down the vocabulary of ballet to everything required for that specific goal. Like you don't need to do every single thing perfectly to be strong enough for that specific goal. If you're looking to be able to do a pirouette, let's narrow it down. Focus in on that. If you're spending 90 minutes with exercises all tailored towards your pirouette, that's way different than spending 90 minutes on like general stuff that is valuable, but it's not like that one specific thing. So if you have something specific, you do not need that much time. You just need a lot of focus.
So staying in the classroom setting, like in the midst of class, I know we've all experienced having a particular class where you're just feeling really overwhelmed or discouraged, or like maybe you had a bad day coming in and you kind of just are like feeling yourself spiraling a little bit. How do you as a student stay engaged and productive even when you feel like a class is not going well?
So hard. Yeah. And everything inside of you just wants to like walk out and go crawl into a closet and like never come back again. You're just like, I can't. This is awful. It's hard. Once you've kind of started spiraling, it's getting back to it is not always the easiest thing in the moment. Overarchingly, remind yourself that those are the days when you're actually learning something.
Yeah.
Days where everything is going well and you're doing all the combos perfectly, like you probably didn't learn that much. It's sad to say, but like the days when you are pushed and you are struggling and you're having a harder time are when you're actually learning what you're made of. They're actually when you're learning new topics. They're when you're learning new steps. As hard as it is, the learning takes place when things are a little too hard for us. That's when that learning is taking place. And if you're getting overwhelmed, even if you can't pull yourself out in the moment from that, I will talk about that in a sec. But even if you're not pulling yourself out, just know like that was a class where I learned a lot. Maybe I didn't learn it today, but that was a class that now has stretched me further than I was stretched in the past. And it doesn't always feel good to be stretched. But if we're talking about being a good student and wanting to be a student who's improving, being willing to be stretched is huge. Being willing to go in there. I'll see a lot of times people will come in and they'll train for a year and then they'll plateau no matter what level they started at. And then you start doing something harder and it's terrible. And you mess everything up and you feel like you leveled up to a higher level class and now you can't do anything right. Or you're working on changing your posture. Now everything feels wrong and you can't pirouette anymore and you can't do anything. And that once you've experienced comfort, it's hard to leave it. Until you've experienced comfort, people are very willing to be uncomfortable or more willing to be uncomfortable. But then once they close and start feeling comfortable, then it's very difficult to get people back out of that comfort zone and into the next level of challenge. So I always try to push people as far as I can in the beginning of getting to meet them. And then after that, it's a lot of coaxing them like, hey, you're still doing great. Even though you messed up 5 of the combos, you're still this is still fine. Like, again, keep participating, right? Like you have to, keep being in those moments while you're there. For me, when I'm in those moments of just spiral, I have only just one thing that I say to myself, and I'm like, you got this, girl.
Oh, but that's so simple.
It doesn't always work. I'm like, no, I don't. Sometimes I like fight back with the voice. At least try. So fun. I'm like, you got this. You can do it. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like a coaching of yourself.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it is really profound in the sense that, like, I think we all have to choose the words that we're saying to ourselves, because I think it can be really easy to just let the inner monologue of, you suck, why are you not able to do this, what's going on, like all the things.
And the sleep turn looks ugly, by the way. It's just like,
Yeah, also
just always thrown in there.
all the things that can just come into your mind during a hour-and-a-half ballet class when you're in a leotard and tights. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's unbelievable. The mental game is, I think, the hardest one to play. The physical stuff will come, like it literally comes. I've seen it come for so many people if they just keep trying and they keep engaging. It will come, but you have to be willing to live through those terrible moments and just know that it's like working. It's working. If you keep working, it is working.
Yeah, and I think that's such a big part of just sticking with ballet for the long haul is like just having the faith that for every time you plateau or you feel like you're actually going backwards, which that happens too, just having the faith that, like, if I keep showing up and if I keep giving it my best effort, this too shall pass. It's hard. It's funny. It was just what you were talking about earlier. I was like, are you reading my mail? Because I felt that way last night in the variations class. I was like, why is this so much harder tonight? I just was having one of those nights where everything felt like such a struggle, and things that even the last couple weeks I felt like I was getting more comfortable with last night were all of a sudden like a dumpster fire. And I was just like, what is going on?
It happens. And it's like, just knowing that those days are still part of it, and they still worked, and they still taught you things, and your body still learned things, even if your brain was in a special state.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I think we're building the resilience of showing up, is such a big part of being a lifelong learner. And I do think, there's value even in taking breaks when you hit that point where you feel like you're just like, okay, I need to just chill for a minute. Like, that's okay too. But, a lot of ballet is like pushing through the discomfort of, oh, that was a really crappy class, but I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to go take another one. I'm sure people that love you and take class with you will be comforted to know that you also understand that feeling of not having a great class.
When I went to in my last year of college, I realized that I was at the last age where I could get into some youth intensives. And I went to one. It was a 5-week intensive. And I cried every single day of that intensive. There was not a single day of that intensive that I did not cry. I did a 2-week intensive before that in New York, and I cried every single day on the train home. It was just like, I wanted it so bad, and it was so hard, and it was so out of my comfort zone. And it was just like, it was just devastating in the moment, right? Because you're just like, this is so hard and wanted it so much, and I'm so bad. Why am I so bad? Like, and of course, it's just, we make these stories up in ours. We tell ourselves these stories, and it's just like, I get it. I get it. It happens to everybody. I think it happens to everybody, and you just like, you keep showing up, if and sometimes the break helps, but sometimes what you need is not a break. Sometimes what you need is to push and to get through. Sometimes the only way out is through, and you have to just show up again. Everyone saw you cry yesterday, but you're there again. So it's like, what can you do? It's just sometimes part of the process. And I would not trade any of that for anything. All of those experiences are when I learned so much in my training, but learning is awful.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable for sure.
It can be really terrible.
Totally can be. And staying on that topic as we move into after class. So class is over and kind of processing. How can dancers reflect on what they learned in class without feeling totally defeated, overwhelmed, self-critical? Because I think that's like, it's such a hard thing because, like we've been talking about, afterwards, you want to be able to take something from the corrections you got and the feedback you receive, but it's like, it can be such a fine line without falling into total self-destruct mode.
Despair.
Yeah, total despair.
Not to be dramatic.
But yeah, sometimes yes. So what do you recommend for dancers to be able to really learn versus falling into despair?
I recommend starting by reflecting on the facts first. So I went to class. There were 8 people there. The teacher was named this, and we did a plie combination that consisted of plies in second, fourth, fifth, and a sous balance at the end. And start at the beginning of class and work through what happened in class and work through see what you can remember about the class other than the one thing that is plaguing you or the whatever you were feeling. See how much of the class you can remember, because when you actually try to remember the whole class as a whole, you can see all of the different things that took place. You can see the ups and the downs. You can notice your own learning patterns and be like, gosh, every time frappes come around is when I really get down on myself, or every time we do across the floor is when I get super anxious. And then those are prompts for your private teacher, like we were talking about. But if you just focus in on the one thing that you messed up, I think it's easy to get self-critical. But if you're like that, just start at the beginning and start writing, or, however you like to do, type on your phone, whatever. Just write from the beginning to the end as much as you can remember. What the combinations were, what the song was, if it was recognizable. Did you do 2 tendu combinations? Did you do a frappe at all? Did you do a rond de jambe stretch afterwards? What combos did you do in center? And like as much of it as you can remember will really help you put your difficult memories in context, and will help you see that they were a small part of a large whole. Maybe of the 90 minutes of class, 15 were hard. Okay, you had 75 great minutes that you can learn from and that you can write down. Like it's easy to just zoom in on that. On those particular moments. So I would say start with that. Reflect from beginning to end linearly. Do not allow yourself to zoom in on the 2 moments that were mortifying or whatever. Maybe it was all a positive class, in which case I still recommend going from beginning to end, because you forget the beginning of the class by the end of the class.
Yeah.
But sometimes the nuggets are in the plies, or in sometimes the teacher will be pontificating before class and they say something that really resonates with you and makes you, happy, or makes you get a glimpse into their life or whatever. And so write down like the things that you can remember about it that are just useful about the class. Also, just the act of remembering is hugely beneficial, because we don't spend enough time remembering. We don't even remember what we need at the grocery store. We write it on a paper, right? We write it on our phone. So just the act of remembering is hugely beneficial for you in your training. And then over time, like I've got so many love all the old journals that I have from that period of time. The crying period, I would write like crying, like writing at the same time. It's just like, why do we do this to ourselves? But they're like amazing. They're like amazing journals. And that's always been my tactic, is like write out from beginning to end. So I can basically recreate a lot of that intensive from my notes, because it's like, here's the combos we did, here's who the teacher was, here's what the day was. And like you have this sort of log of everything you did, which helps you remember everything you learned. If you just say like, what did I learn today? It's really hard to answer that. But if you say, what did we do today? Then you can maybe start by a list of activities, and then you can boil it down to the types of things. I noticed that student tried this and I thought it was interesting. Or like I noticed that happened and that was interesting. Like, what did you notice? What did you see? I think that's one of the greatest ways to reflect after class.
Yeah, and like you said, I feel like that touches on so many things that are helpful, of like being able to zoom out and not get so tunnel vision on what's negative, and then also even just helping with memory and being able to recall combinations. Because I do think, that's such a big part of the stressor, I think, for adult dancers specifically in a ballet class, is just remembering choreography.
Yeah.
But it is like a muscle. Like I remember hearing for the first time that your memory is like a muscle that you need to exercise, and that you can improve it and you can strengthen it. And I think in some ways that's like such great news, because I think sometimes we think of our memories as like, oh, I just have a terrible memory and like that's just how I am. But when you realize that it's something that you can actually really work on improving, it's such like an empowering feeling. And doing things like that, of trying to remember after class combinations, like I do that a lot of times on the drive home from my in-person class. I try to remember certain combinations, especially if I want to be able to practice it at home. I'm like, okay, try to remember the grande allegro combination, and it's so helpful for like building up that muscle.
Yeah, so helpful. And it also shows when you remember things from week to week, your teacher is happy that you remembered things from week to week, because you're able to engage with them. You're able to go there and show that, even if you can't practice, even if you don't have the ability to practice physically outside of class for whatever reason, no problem. But if you have this, if you have a running memory, like 80% of ballet is in your brain. So if you are improving what your brain knows, you're continuing to improve your ballet technique. You know about, like you said, with your head, if you can't remember that you should always keep your head back, then the correction's not even useful for you because you can't remember it. So being able to remember this stuff also really, really helps you improve and helps you continue to get new corrections week after week, because you kind of check the box on the former one and you can get new stuff from your teacher.
And I think there's so much value even in writing things down. I mean, they say that there's research on that, of like the way that it kind of solidifies. So I try to actually physically write versus like even putting things in my phone, because I do think for me it helps me to really lock it in a different way when I physically write in a notebook. It's just, yeah, so helpful. So in addition to
Amazing.
that, do you have any other like post-class routines that you do that you feel like really help you, whether it's to like lock in what you learned or even just kind of transitioning out of class mode and things that you do to take care of your body or just different things like that?
I don't have too many things that I do after class. I pretty much just kind of move on with life and get back to work. But later at the end of the night usually is when I'll do like grab the massage gun and check out what needs to happen while dinner cooks and see what body parts are, needing some extra love or whatever takes place the next morning. Often you kind of see what happens there. But I really personally, I like to kind of leave class at class, move on, get back to the things that I was thinking about beforehand, and then just like let it percolate. So in the shower, recalling things or like letting it wander back to class and like taking time to intentionally think about what was going on in class. I'm a big watch it on video type of person. I always film myself during my privates. And then, even when if I do take a group class or somewhere I'm not able to film myself, I like to go home and recreate the combination and film it so that I can see what it looks like on myself. It takes a while, I think, to use video helpfully, as opposed to just being like, man, you're bad at this. Like, that's not a helpful way to use video. So like if that's how you're using video, then probably don't video yourself yet. Probably hold off on the video until you can look at it and actually know what you're looking for. Because if you're looking at it and just being like, wow, that looks awful, like that's literally not helpful. That's actually just actively making it worse. Like you're not getting any better and you probably won't want to stick with it because you're just being mean to yourself. So if you're just being mean to yourself, take a beat, learn a little bit more about what the corrections are that you're trying to look for and how to tell if you're doing them before you go for it. I would consider watching yourself on video like more of an advanced skill, like in a higher level class, like it's an intermediate ballet is like then being able to watch yourself on video. It's kind of not a beginner level skill is like watching yourself on video or even in the mirror. Like sometimes at the beginning, you just don't need to see it. Obviously there's value in seeing it. I'm a huge fan of seeing all of this, but like in the beginning, it just depends on your reaction to watching it. If your reaction is just 100% negative and there's no helpful thoughts, then stop.
I know for me too, like sometimes it's even a mood thing. Like I've gotten so much better over the last year, especially of really asking myself before I watch a video of myself dancing, like, are you in the right headspace for this to be a productive exercise right now?
Yeah, you have to.
I used to just like make myself watch the videos after class. And especially if it was a more difficult class or one that I felt just like a little bit more disappointed in like how I did, I just know that watching the video in that headspace is not going to be a productive exercise. So to wait for a day where your self-esteem is feeling a little bit higher to watch videos is definitely the choice that I try to make, because
you have to.
It's so funny how you can even watch the same video on different days or at different times and have a completely different reaction to it. Like I have had that happen so many times where I watched a video and was just in a negative headspace and was like, oh my gosh, this looks so bad. It's garbage. I'm terrible. Why do I do this? And then like 3 days later, 2 weeks later, I'll see the video on my phone and I'll watch it and I'll be like, that wasn't that bad. Like, why did I think that looked so terrible? It's just like so mental.
Yeah, so mental. I don't think watching it right after class is the way. Do not watch your videos right after class. Take it and wait 3 to 4 days to watch it. And watch it when you're in a good mood. Don't watch it when everything is going wrong and you've got 100 text messages to reply to and you feel like garbage. Like that's not the day, right?
Yeah.
I always think watching on video, I'm always looking for the answer to the question like, what was my teacher saying to me that I thought I was doing that I was actually not doing? That's what I'm looking for. Let's say there was in the fondue combo and she's like, you're not pulling up on your hips. And I'm like, I swear I am. Like, let's check the proof. And then I'll watch the video and I'm like, oh, it was that moment that she was talking about. I see where she was talking about. But like, in the moment, you can't always see, even if you have a mirror there, you can't always see that, what the teacher is seeing. So I'm like, what is she saying? What is she seeing that I'm not feeling? That's what I'm looking for when I watch myself on video. Just watching a class from beginning to end is kind of painful. But watching a specific exercise of like, she kept saying my knee was dropping and I swear it wasn't, she kept saying like, that type of thing I'm trying to use the video to understand. So like spot checking the video, starting halfway through, going in reverse can often be helpful if you watch the video backwards, because then you're not just like so in your head. Just scrubbing through it backwards can help you see things. If you flip it mirror image, it can help you see things because you're used to how your body looks. Like if you're looking for an imbalance, it's really hard to see because you're used to how you look. But if you flip it, you're like, wow, does my head really sit to the side like that? I had no idea, because you're just used to seeing it. Like my head always sits to the right. And when I see mirror image, I'm like, why is your head so far to the right? But if I look at myself straight on, I can't tell that my head is tilted to the right. So if you're looking for alignment issues, mirror image that video, take on your iPhone, like flip it mirror image so you can see yourself in a new light. Like that's all what I'm looking for video, not just to watch it beginning to end to see like, are you a good dancer? Because the answer will never be yes in your own head. If you actually want to make progress, still your answer will probably never be like, yeah, you're amazing.
Yeah. Those moments are very few and far between.
Nailed it. Like those are very rare. It's more like, oh, that was okay. That needs work. That's fine. That needs more.
I never would have thought of like flipping it to be able to see something different. But to your point, proving that point, it's random and on topic at the same time. I saw a video of myself the other day that was inverted. And I had no idea how not the same my two eyebrows were.
Yeah, right? Because you're so used to it. I mean, they look the same to me, but I'm sure you're like, when you're nitpicking, yeah, it's so true.
I was like, I saw a video of myself flipped and I was like, oh my God, my eyebrows are so crooked. It was such a crazy thing to realize, like exactly what you're saying. We are so trained to see our bodies even just in a certain orientation. So I never would have thought to do that with dance video, but I'm like, I'm totally going to do that now because
right?
I know it's true. Just based on my eyebrows, I know it's true.
Yeah, it's so true. You see yourself in the mirror, you see yourself right. You're like, that's not how I look. I was, okay, it is though.
Totally. I know. And it's like fixating on the silly things versus fixating on the things that are actually going to help us improve and really, make progress in the way that we want to are two very different things. So do you have any last words of wisdom for our listeners? Julie, you've just have like so much insight and I've loved chatting with you. So is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I hope this has been a helpful chat for everybody and help you feel like that you're not alone. I always want you to remember that in group class or even when you're by yourself practicing, you're not alone. Sometimes your brain can trick you into feeling like you're alone, especially when you feel like you're messing everything up or that you're failing or letting people down or disappointing people. You can feel very alone in those feelings. If you feel embarrassed or ashamed, this can be a very lonely feeling. So remember, you're not alone. You're there with your teacher. You're there with the other students. You're there with the legacy of people who learned ballet before and who will learn ballet after you. You're a part of a much bigger thing. And so anytime you can, just have little connections with people, a smile across the room at somebody, a high five to somebody after class. Little connections can help you remember that you're not alone in the process and that the whole process of learning ballet is, while it's individual, it's also really together. It's really a process of dancing together and growing together and all becoming better versions of ourselves and better dancers as well in a community. So it's really amazing. And I hope the tips have been helpful and I hope you enjoy your next class and hopefully many, many more classes to come.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to leave all of the links in the show notes so that people can connect with you and with Broche Ballet. You are definitely like the first thing I recommend when people reach out asking about classes. I'm always like, Broche, you have to check out Broche because the combination of the on-demand library and the live classes is just absolutely incredible. Do you know how many videos you have at this point on your on-demand?
It's somewhere close-ish to 8,000.
I was going to say like it has to be in the thousands. I mean,
yeah,
it's so robust. It's amazing.
It's in the thousands. I think we're finally getting to where topics are getting repeated, but pretty much a lot of them are unique topics just because we go into the super detailed.
Yes. And that's one of the things I love about your platform is like you just get into the nitty-gritty of so many things, like really anything you could possibly want to do a deep dive into you have on your library. So I'll put all that information in the show notes so people can connect. And thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your insight into what it means to be a great student. I learned so much from this conversation. I'm sure the listeners did too. So we hope that you guys enjoyed it, and thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can join the after-class Corps de Ballet for just $3 a month through the listener support feature. It really helps keep the podcast going, and as a member, you'll even get a special shout-out in future episodes. All the links mentioned in this episode, including the link to join the Corps, are included in the show notes. See you next week after class!